What's up, guys? This is GC Off-Road. I'm expecting my dual battery isolator to show up in the mail today, so I'm just kind of waiting on that to get here. While I'm waiting on it, I've been cleaning up a little bit of wiring in the engine bay, and I just fitted a new battery tray to the inside of the bay. So I'm gonna bring y'all in and show y'all how I did that. Now if y'all look down in here, you can see I've got a battery tray moved to this side where the factory air box used to sit at. And what this is just a factory battery tray out of a 1998 Jeep ZJ. What I had to do was trim the plastic out of this corner. The plastic's about double this size when it comes out, and it's got two bolt locations in it. So I trimmed one of those out along this center seam, and I cut the back corner here so it wouldn't interfere with the wiring harness. Then I had to trim the back legs off at about a 45 degree angle. That way it would sit against the arch of the wheel well. Then up here on the front side, I just trimmed it back where that bolt location was. That way I had room to get down in between the front side and the header panel. It really took nothing at all, and it's just about a perfect fit. Now the bolt location down inside the battery tray matches up with a bolt hole that the factory airbox bolted down to the fender well with. Now I've just got to find a way to mount this upper corner down to the fender well. But anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and finish mounting this down, and when the isolator gets here, I'll walk y'all through on how I'm going to install it. Alright guys, literally as soon as I hit stop on the last clip, mail showed up and got my package. So I'm gonna drop the hood down and we'll open this thing up and show y'all what it came with. This is my isolator kit. There's some instructions that came with it. Here is the wiring harness. Bag of wire connectors and fuses and fuse block. And this is my high current relay by X Scorpion. Now here's the instructions for it. It'll show you starter battery, run through fuse and holder into the isolator, then out of the isolator through a fuse and fuse holder and into the second battery. The second battery will be grounded to the chassis. You'll have an ignition 12 volt system or a 12 volt power source that only turns on when your switch is on. It'll go to one of the contacts on the solenoid, and the other one will go to chassis ground. So not too hard to do, guys. I guess I'm gonna go ahead and pop the hood back open and start figuring out where I want to route the wires at. So what I did first was I cut about a 10-inch section off of my heavy gauge wire. I put one of the ring terminals on the end, clamped it down, and then I soldered it in place with some electrical solder. I added a piece of heat shrink over the end of it and then heat sealed it. Now down here in the fuse holder, both end caps screw off of it, and these little brass ends fit inside of it, and they have a rubber seal to keep moisture out. So you take those out, the fuse will go inside, and then you push them back together. But to connect the wires to it, you're going to need a Allen bit, which I don't have one that fits, so I'm just using a T15 Torx. It fits it good enough. You'll back out this set screw inside of it. Then you will strip off about 3/8 inch of your insulation off your wire, and the wire feeds into it all the way up to the inside, and then you tighten the set screw down. Alright, so that's pretty good. There's a little exposed wire there, but it should be fine. So this first section I made is going to mount over here to the fender well, and then I'm going to mount the solenoid somewhere in this area over here. Now that I've got that on there, I'm going to have to cut this wire down to where it can run to the battery. So I've got to figure out where I'm mounting my fuse, my fusible link seal thing at, and then figure out how much wire I'm going to need to trim off. I'm gonna say about 14 inches of wire is what I'm gonna cut off. So I'm gonna find me some wire cutters real quick and trim it up. I don't know if these are big enough. Oh yeah, they'll work. Alright. So now I've got that section cut off, I'm just gonna sit the extra off to the side for a few minutes. Now I'm gonna trim this up, trim the insulation back, just like I did before. And then we'll be adding a ring terminal to this side. We'll go ahead and I'll put my ring terminal over the wire and find my pliers wherever I sat them at. Do the same thing to the other side of it. And that is a pretty tight seal, you can see. That would work just fine the way it is, but I am going to go back, use my torch and just heat up this connector by itself, and that'll also heat the wire. I'm going to go through and backfill it with a little bit of electrical solder. Alright, I got that soldered on. I went ahead and heat shrinked it, and now I'm just going to sit to the side and let it cool for a few minutes. That's done. This will run to the battery post. This will be mounted over here to the wall somewhere, and then I'll have to find a place to mount my relay solenoid thing. But for now, I know how much room I've got to mount it over here, so I can start making up the wire that runs from here to the other battery. So for that, I'm gonna need to go ahead, trim back another piece of this wire, and add a ring terminal to it. And again, like before, I'm just going to take these little rubber boots that they gave me with the ring terminals, and I'm going to actually use my heat shrink tube and solder on these connections. Just pulled you off tripod for a minute. You see how these connect to that solenoid. You just loosen these two screws off and put the ring terminals over it, then put the lock washer and the nut back on it. Now, this side right here will run to the auxiliary battery that's going to be on this side of the Jeep, and this one is where the long cable that runs to the other side of the Jeep connects to. Now I've got that cable trimmed out. I pulled about 18 inches off of it. That should give me plenty of room to reach that side, and also find a good mounting location for my other fuse, which goes right there. So like before, I'm going to go ahead and strip this wire back and mount it up to that little fuse block, and then I'll do the same thing with the long wire and mount it to the other side of the fuse block. Alright guys, you can see right here, I got those wires made up. Now I've got to do the wire that runs from my ignition switch or my power from the switch over to the solenoid, and also have to do a ground wire that runs from the solenoid out to the chassis. So I'm gonna get that figured out and come back and show y'all how that's gonna work. So the terminals they sent with this kit were too big for the wires. They didn't fit as well, so I just crimped on a smaller connection I had. You could probably make the original ones work, but I went ahead and went to a full loop one. Now, if you go by the way the instructions tell you here, this bottom wire on the solenoid is the one that goes to the ground. So this is going to be my ground cable. So I'm going to go ahead and put this on here, tighten it down, and then trim it up and put another terminal on the other end when I find the ground location I'm going to hook it to. Now aside from that, they also send this roll of a pink wire. That's going to be the ignition 12 volt, and it's going to mount over here to the back side to this contact point. So I'm gonna go ahead and make up that wire while I'm at it, and then figure out how to come over here and get through the firewall. That way I can tap into one of the points on the inside for the ignition wire. Now I don't think I showed y'all, but I added a 5 relay slash fuse box that I'm gonna route all of my accessories through. That way it'll clean it up. I mounted it to the firewall here. Now down on the inside here, I had a bolt hole right back in here, and there was one up here at an angle that just so happen to fit with the solenoid. And I've got plenty of access room to get to the wires, so I went ahead and mounted them up there. Right here I've got a chassis ground, so I'm gonna take the wire that goes from my ground, I'm gonna shorten it down and put a ring terminal on it and mount it up right there. And then I will wire up the thicker gauge wires that run to the battery, get them put in place. All right guys, I made that little jumper wire to go to ground. Right there you can see the wire that goes up. It runs up there. I've still got to go through the firewall to take it to the switch. Now, this bottom wire right here goes down under the battery box. The fuse link mounts to the fender there. And I've just got that sitting out of the way because this end over here will plug into the battery. Now this top one runs along over here. I got to drill a hole right here to tie this cable up out of the way. But then I pulled the grill loose, and down under here I've just got the cable sitting up under this metal shroud, and I'm going down through here where all these holes are, and I'm gonna zip tie it up and out of the way, and then it'll come out right over here and I'll have it zip tied up out of the way. And I've got to figure out where I'm gonna mount this one at. So well, my voice cracked. Alright guys, so just got the wire in. Like I said, I had it zip tied up like under the shroud here in front of the radiator. It comes out. I've got it mounted to my battery cable right now. That's not going to be a permanent solution. I've actually got a set of marine style plugs to hook accessories and stuff too that I'll be putting on that starting battery. I've got to get another set to go on whatever battery I'm putting on here. This one's just on here to kind of mock everything up. So basically I've got everything done to it except testing it, and I'm gonna have to wait to test it out to see just how exactly it works and if it's even gonna work. I'm gonna have to get me a second battery because like I said, this one don't really work. It's just for mocking up everything. But this wire right here will mount onto my battery post on the positive side, and I've got to buy a ground wire, like a new ground chassis ground wire, to run over to the negative side, and then I'll mount that over here on the fender well somewhere. I'll have to make a new spot for that to hook to. But all right, one more thing I've got to do before I wrap this project up is I've got to run that pink wire that runs from the positive side of the solenoid, or from the switch side of the solenoid, into my cab and run it to a switched system that's only on when the Jeep is on. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tap into the cigarette lighter. My Jeep has an accessory plug and a cigarette lighter in it, and I don't use the lighter anyways, but it's only on when the switch is on. So that's probably where I'm gonna tap into. Now I've drilled a hole in the in the firewall or floorboard of the Jeep, and I've got the wire fed through it right now. So next I'm gonna go back up to the engine bay, grab that wire, and see if I can pull it through, and then I'll hook it back up to the solenoid. So you see right down in there is where it's running through. I'm gonna pull it through, bring it up the firewall, probably zip tie it up here out of the way, and then run it over behind the washer fluid reservoir, and then back down over here to the contact post. See, I just spliced into that wire that comes off the back of the cigarette lighter. When I click the switch over, if you listen carefully, you can hear the solenoid kick on. And it kicks back off when you shut the switch off. So that looks like that's gonna work for me. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw the cover in, throw the lower dash cover back on, and get that wire taped up or zip tied up and out of the way. And yeah, should be good to go. Anyways guys, I will come back later on. I said I'd do the same thing with my winch and do a test video, and I'll also do the dual battery test the same day that I do the winch test, because I'll have everything wired together and I don't have to mess with it no more. I'm gonna go ahead and get this stuff cleaned up here and give y'all one last quick look at everything before I wrap it up. As always, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Check me out on Facebook and Instagram at GC Off-Road.